Most of the artwork that I create is mixed media. So I take the best of different paints and pencils and markers and single out the best qualities of them with the way I work, and then I combine them to create the mixed media pieces that you generally see. And I feel like I've worked that way for all of my life. It was just something where I know it works well, and so I'm going to use it to my advantage. And that's just kind of how I've always pieced things together. It's like I know what those strengths are, and I'm going to utilize them, but I also know what their weaknesses are, so I'm going to avoid them. And that comes from playing and testing and really seeing what works and what doesn't work, and just kind of cataloging it in my head. And then, well, I use it pretty much almost every single day I'm creating. And so I don't have to do a whole lot of testing, although it's still something that I do to make sure I'm going to get the results that I want. And so I figured I'd film it and show you how I created the textures for my latest collection, which is Harbor Slam Poetry. It's a coastal collection featuring a blue crab and a lobster, and it's just really fun. I'm going to demonstrate with a lobster claw. So I went ahead and drew out with pencil the basic lobster claw shape, and then one of my favorites is to line with a permanent marker. In this case, this is a Sharpie felt tip marker, and it does say permanent, but don't ever let your guard down. Always make sure you test with whatever you're going to go over top of it with on a scrap piece of paper so that you don't ruin, whatever it is that you're working on. So I went ahead and lined that, and then that allows me to erase the pencil or the graphite, because that can really smear and look dirty and dark if you don't get rid of it. So I went ahead and erased after I was sure it was dry. If you don't wait, you can again smear the marker, so just be cautious. Okay, so we have our lobster claw, and then the next step is to layer on the marker. And I use an assortment of markers, and I can't remember exactly which layers I use, so let me just dig some out and do some color swatches to figure out which ones I used. And then the first layer that I put down is going to be my lightest color, kind of like your highlight color or your base color. And as you can see that I've really used this marker a lot, so I'm going to have to replace it. But I really do like these Winsor & Newton Pro markers. They're alcohol markers. But go ahead and get a solid foundation down. Just fill in the whole base of what you're coloring with your first color, which is your lightest color. That's the main takeaway. Make sure you have your lightest color. And then we'll move on to our next layer, and that's where I do some stippling to help with the blending. So this next step here, I'm going to use the stippling, or almost like a flicking motion, to get kind of that pebbly texture that crustaceans have. And so I stepped up the colors with 3 different colors of like a bursting bright orangey yellow, and then a medium yellow or a medium orange, and then a darker orange, kind of like a fiery orange. So this is like that next step up into the orange. And so, like I said, you can envision where your highlights are going to be and where your lowlights would be, or if you have a photo reference, then you already know. And so I just like to line the edges wherever my darkest areas are, and then come in and do that flicking and that stippling effect to kind of blend it out and fade it out to get that nice kind of pebbly texture that a lobster would have. And it's helpful to test this out before you go ahead and do it on your final piece if you've never done it before. I've done an extensive amount of stipple artwork. I used to create artwork that was nothing but stippling, no lines, no anything else, quite tedious, but once you master it, you'll love it. And then you can go back over that stippling with that base color, that first color we put down, to help blend out that stippling effect so that you kind of get a smoother gradient. And then I do the same thing again with the third level of orange. And you can go back and choose that second level of orange to help blend the stippling here and there, but you're gonna have to like dot it instead of like taking the whole marker over it if you need that help there for the blending. But you just think about where your low lights are, where the dark spots are, and then you go in and you put those deepest colors of orange. And for the final step, where I use the marker to make those little circles, I used a punchy red to go in there and just add a little extra contrast. And it worked out really well for adding a little extra punch. And then this is where I switch over to colored pencil. And what I love about this is the marker is completely dry. I can run my hand over it. It's not smeary, as opposed to if I had done all of this in colored pencil, it'd be pretty saturated right now and probably less able to take much more color than this. But for the colored pencil, it's like it's a fresh piece of paper. I can still add lots and lots of layers and add lots of details and contrasts that I just wouldn't be able to do if I had used all colored pencil. So I go in and add my low lights even more, and then I also have more control over the details that I'm adding, as opposed to a marker that, you know, it just isn't that precise. And then this next part here really is the funnest part for me here. It's the highlight of it all. It's when I get to come in and make little circles and dots of various sizes with a couple different colors of colored pencil to really bring the final result to life. It's so visually stimulating. It adds that little extra detail. It just went the little extra mile to make the artwork look really, really nice. And like I said, there's something about these circles and dots of these lighter colors contrasting with the deep oranges. It just makes it look really, really beautiful. And also it replicates, once again, the surface of the lobster. It looks like it could be the real thing. It's a very nice surrealistic type of rendition of its skin, and it's my favorite part.